Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffman. Welcome to our 125th installment in the Torah portion of the week. We took a hiatus for a while. We are back, hopefully weekly, doing these videos on the Parsha. We are in Parshas Emor, at least here in Israel. We're in Parshas Emor. Outside of Israel, it'll be Parshas Kedoshim. Still a week behind. It's going to take a while for outside of Israel to catch up. Anyway, beginning of the Parsha speaks about the laws of a Kohen. It tells us in the first verse, it says, Hashem said to Moshe, say to the Kohanim, the sons of Aaron, and tell them, each of you shall not contaminate himself to a dead person among his people, right? Except for a relative who's closest to him, to his mother, his father, his son, his daughter, his brother, right? His virgin sister is close to him, anyone he's got an obligation to mourn for, who has not been wed to a man, to her shall he contaminate himself. Talks about the laws of a Kohen, who he's allowed to be metame, to contaminate himself, so to speak, make himself impure, right? Because someone who's tame, someone who's a Kohen, is not allowed to become tame. He's not allowed to go to a basic forest, right? He's not allowed to go to a graveyard, right? But for a very close relative, right? He's allowed to, right? He's allowed not only to go to, he happens to, be by the, by the funeral, or he comes in contact, with this dead person, that is someone he's allowed to mourn for. Obviously, if it's someone else that he's not allowed to mourn for, he should be careful, right? He should be careful to not impurify himself any more than he has to. Now, you might tell me we're all impure today, right? Everybody's impure. So if everybody's impure, what does it matter? Right? So we have this thing about Kedusha, right? About holiness. The fact that, a person wants to stay on that level, right? You don't want to bring yourself down, so to speak. For a Kohen, he's got more of an obligation. So there's a medrash that says like this, that it says, Yiras Hashem Tahiroi Medes La'ad. The person who has fear of God, if he has fear of God, he's pure, he stands forever. Right? Doesn't mean he lives forever, but if he has fear of God, right, he reaches a certain level of purity, and that protects him. Amar Rav Levi, says Rav Levi in the Medrash, from fear, right, Aaron had fear in front of God. Right? In other words, fear that he's not going to make himself more impure. Right? He's going to listen to what God says, obviously, and do what he needs to do. So this parsha is given to him, right? The parsha of this idea that a Kohen doesn't make himself impure, unless it's for someone who's got an obligation to contaminate himself, from mother, father, sister, brother, parent, as we mentioned, God forbid, a child or a spouse. So he says over here in the Medrash that he merited this parsha, and this parsha doesn't leave him or his kids or his grandkids for all future generations. What's it talking about? Right? It says the Medrash, what is this? It's Parshas Emor. It's talking about the parsha of a dead person, right? And the fact that the Kohen is not allowed to be matam himself, as much as possible, not allowed to impurify himself. Because we learn out from the beginning of the parsha, as we mentioned. Says Mori Rabbi, Arav Agon or Moshe Moshlita, should be well. He says this needs further clarification. What merit? What's the merit over here of impurifying yourself, coming in contact with a dead body? What's the big thing here? And what's the connection? The fear of heaven, impurity of Aaron. Right? What in the world you're telling me this parsha went to Aaron? Right? Because of all of his virtues, and he merited this parsha that we're going to leave his kids and his grandkids. It's talking about not impurifying yourself. Right? Not coming in contact with a dead body, even if you have an obligation to mourn them. Right? What's the big thing? Right? The Rabbi asks, right? What in the world's the big thing over here? What's the connection? So he says, truth is, when a Kohen is matame mace, When he makes himself impure, he comes in contact with a dead body. Now, what makes him impure? Impurity, right, sounds kind of like, for lack of a better word, in my language, we'll call it spiritual cooties. Right? That's exactly what it sounds like. But the essence of a dead body. The essence of a dead body makes it impure. Why? Because what is a dead body? You're going to say a person's dead, right? What do you mean? What do you mean, what is a dead body? Dead body means it doesn't have a soul. Right? Dead body means that the soul is left. That's why it's forbidden, to look at a dead body. Because when you look at a dead body, what are you looking at? You're looking at the body without a soul. So the soul is already totally confused, as Zohar says. And the soul tries to get back in the body. And it goes to places where it used to live, where it used to hang out, etc. It's tremendous pain that the soul is in until it gets judged. I mean, it'll be more pain probably after that. But it's in a tremendous amount of pain. So when the soul's in a tremendous amount of pain, it's out of the body. What are you looking at? You're looking at meat. I mean, no pun intended. You're looking at a slab of meat. Right? So, you're looking at a body without a soul. It's forbidden. Right? So, the essence, so says my Rabbi here, the essence of the impurity comes from the dead body. Right? That's where it comes from. But why is it given over here? Why does it say that Aaron and his sons, right, Aaron and his family have to stay away? They have to separate from a dead body. Right? Well, what's this whole thing? What's the connection? So he said that the fundamental principle here is that the Kohanim had to always be ready to serve God. Right? What did the Kohanim do? The Kohanim, were in the Beis Hamikdash. They had a certain time they had to be there during the year. And they served. Right? They're the ones that did the sacrifices. So they always had to be ready to serve. And their greatness was that they were careful never to forget this fact. Right? Well, you're going to say that's obvious. Right? Isn't that obvious? That since they always have to serve, they have to be ready. And they have to be prepared. That should be obvious. But it means over here they were careful never to forget. And that's why Aaron merited this fear. Right? This fear of heaven. And he got this purity. And that's why it stands forever. Now, it's interesting. It's interesting over here that the two go hand in hand. The fact that Aaron and his sons, right, are going to stay away from this impurity as much as possible, because they always have to be ready to serve. That means that they're going to make fences around themselves to make sure, no pun intended, they're going to make fences around themselves to make sure that they don't become impure. That they don't come in contact with a dead body. Now, sometimes it's going to happen. Right? I mean, you can't be careful all the time. There could be a case where someone comes along, someone brings an animal for sacrifice, the guy dies. Guy has a heart attack and dies. Right in front of the Kohen. So the Kohen will become impure. I mean, there are circumstances we could probably think of, where it could happen. Point is, you'll tell me, okay, maybe it's not so common. Fine. Right? That may not be common. It doesn't mean that the Kohen did not have to prepare himself and be careful in order that he should always be ready to serve. Right? That's the merit. Right? That's where the fear of heaven comes in. That's where the purity comes in. The fact that he's always careful, right, and he's looking back and forth and, thinking of different scenarios that he doesn't want to put himself in, that he's gonna second guess himself and third guess and make sure, this never happens. Good. Right? That's where the praise comes in. That's where the fear comes in, because he's going to do whatever it takes to make sure this doesn't happen. So, Rabbi says, this applies to all generations. That God sanctified the Kohanim. They're the ones that served him. He says, but they wouldn't have had success if they didn't have fear of heaven. They wouldn't have reached this purity. right? If they did not have this, this fear of heaven. So, it's not just for Kohanim. Even though the Torah here says specifically it's talking about the Kohanim, and this is what their obligation is, right? That they have to stay away, from dead people. So, what does that have to do with us? Right? What does that have to do with everybody else? We ourselves, we go to funerals if a person's a Levite or Yisrael, right? You're not a Kohen. So, they can go to funerals. They're allowed to come in contact with a dead body, right? That's not a problem. They don't have this level of purity that's expected of them. Says my Rabbi over here, that may be true by Kohanim, right? Kohanim have an obligation. They have to watch themselves more. They have to be careful. They have to be tremendously more careful. Otherwise, they can come in contact with a dead body. And that would impurify themselves. That would disqualify them from serving unless they get purified. But my Rebbe here says if you want fear of heaven, you want this level of purity, doesn't just apply to a Kohen. It can apply to any Jew. Why can it apply to any Jew? Because he's talking about a case where a person in general is careful. He's careful of the blessings that he makes. He's careful how they observe Shabbos. He's careful in working on character development. He's careful on kashrus. He's careful on, you fill in the blank. He's careful on everything. Right? Everything within Judaism. He tries to be careful. But he's consistent. Right? He works very hard at consistency. Consistency is something that's very important. Very, very important. Why? It's important because everybody knows that in order to be successful when it comes to anything spiritual, you have to do it on a regular basis, right? It has to be constant. It can't be, well, I feel like doing it today. No, I don't, right? So you slack off. So a person decides, oh, I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to be slack on this, be slack on that, right? I'll do other things. A person, right, you want to practice, working on prayer, working on how I speak, working on character development. They're going to say, learn about it. True? Right? We always have to be constantly learning, constantly reviewing. But, to go in the right direction and fight against the evil inclination, right? The Talmud says, Talmud tells us God created the evil inclination, but he created an antidote. What's the antidote? Torah. He gave us an antidote. By giving us an antidote, he gave us the ability to fight. Right? That's by learning Torah. That's by keeping mitzvahs. Even if we make mistakes, the fact that day in and day out, we are trying to do the right thing. We are trying to go in the right direction. That's what God wants to see. And the more a person does things, and even if people make mistakes, it really doesn't matter, right? Because at the end of the day, they're striving to become great people. They are striving to take negative things out of their lives, even if it's hard, right? They're striving how they're going to speak to people. They're striving in all these different things. They're taking little steps to change, right? By taking these little steps, it's a good thing, but it has to be constant. It cannot be haphazard. It can't be I pray one day I don't pray. Right? Or it can't be I make blessings on some things and I don't make blessings on other things where I'm obligated. Right? So you have to try and do everything right. Right? You want to be the man. You want to walk the walk, talk the talk. Dress the way you should. Okay. But you have to do it on a regular basis. If you don't do it on a regular basis, how in the world can you become proficient? It's like anything else. Person wants to be a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant, right? You have to learn. And it has to be continuous. These exams aren't easy. Right? You have to study. You have to work at it. Get to I'm taking 2 days off, 3 days off. Right? Then I'll come back to it. Right? A person can't learn. Noah Weinberg, Zecher Tzadik Levrocho, may his name be blessed, the great rabbi who started Aisha Torah. And he said a person studies for 2 hours. I say, really? You study 2 hours straight? I said, no. I studied for 1 hour and 40 minutes. Then I took a 10-minute break. Then I went back. I studied another half an hour. Then I took another 10-minute break. In short, maybe studied 1 hour and a half out of 2 hours. Maybe 1 hour and 15 minutes out of 2 hours. But it's not 2 hours straight. It's not the same. You're going to say, I had to relax. I was tired. I started seeing things. It's got to be constant. Right? Rabbi Akiva, right? In the days of the Omer, and counting the Omer, Rabbi Akiva lost 24,000 students. Right? 24,000 students. Now remember Rabbi Akiva was. Rabbi Akiva grew up, poor shepherd, hated the rabbis. Right? Returns to Judaism at the age of 40. And he goes to learn. Right? Sits in his kid's class like a 5-year-old learning the Aleph base. But he became great because he learned and he learned and he learned and he learned. It was constant. Rabbi Akiva comes back. He comes back home after 12 years. Right? And his wife, he overhears his wife saying, if my husband will come here right now, I send him out for another 12 years. Rabbi Akiva turns around and leaves. So the commentaries ask, why did Rabbi Akiva go in? He hadn't seen his wife in 12 years. Say hello to his wife, say hello to his kids, stay a couple days, go back. So the answer is no. Had Rabbi Akiva come in, had he stayed a few days and left, or whatever the case was, he wouldn't have become as great as Rabbi Akiva. Why not? Because 12 and 12 is not 24. Got to be constant. So yeah, you're going to tell me these are high standards. Right? Some days the person doesn't feel like learning. Could be. Right? Person's tired. Person maybe he's in a bad mood, going through a hard time. Etc. So the idea is, if a person, let's say, doesn't learn any Torah one day, take him 2 days to catch up what he was supposed to learn, or what he was supposed to do. Why? Because he left his brain empty. He left his body empty. What does it mean? Right? What does it mean he left it empty? It means that the spiritual juices weren't there. So now you have to reignite. Right? When evil inclination comes, it takes hold of a person. It's going to be very easy to try and convince you, well, guess what? Okay, you were tired. You deserve to have a break. You worked hard. You worked hard all day, all night, whatever it was. You deserve a break. So we got to take the evil inclination and say, you're right, I may deserve a break. But maybe God doesn't think I deserve a break. Right? God understands. God understands. Got to be constant. There's a claim against Joshua, right? Great leader of the Jewish people. That when he was done fighting the war, right, conquering the land, there was an angel comes. Angel with a sword, ready to kill. So he asks his angel, like, what are you doing here? What are you here for? Right? One possible reason could be because they weren't able to give a certain sacrifice. Another possible reason is for Bittul Torah. You should have been learning. Right? The men should have been learning. Now, think about what's going on. Fighting for their lives. Right? Fighting against the nations around them. And, they had a break in the war. So because they had a break in the war, that means that when they have a break, they should go back thinking about nothing. Right? So the angel says, I'm here for Bittul Torah. You're wasting time. So if you would ask me, no one's asking, but I'll tell you my opinion, that they fought hard, constant battles. They're weary. They're in the valley. Cut them some slack. Let them enjoy a little bit of R&R. They've all been fighting hard. Right, what does Talmud come and tell us? They could have given up their lives. They could have forfeit their life. Because they should have been learning. Okay. That's a very high standard. We're going to be surprised. God's going to ask us after 120 years. Did you learn my Torah? He goes, of course I learned. I spent this amount of time every day learning. And when you had time to learn and you didn't learn, what were you doing? Some person make excuses. I was helping my wife. I was doing this. Doing the other thing. But we're going to be very surprised. Why? We're going to be very surprised when we see all the time that elapsed when I could have been learning or doing something productive, and I didn't. I'm going to be very, very surprised. So, it doesn't make any sense, logically speaking, how a person can sin. You're going to say, really? Doesn't make any sense. How can you say that? Everyone's got an evil inclination. Nobody's perfect. Right? As we say, there's never been anyone righteous, never sinned. May be true. But if we think about the responsibility, if we think about the fact that Torah learning upholds the world, that what we're doing is upholding the world. Anything less than that's destroying the world. Right? We're doing negative things. It's destruction. At the same time, a person may just need downtime. It's true. Right? A person's not a machine. But see, we keep coming back to the same idea. Doesn't matter whether we're tired, etc. The obligation is to learn as much as we can. Because we're not going to accomplish that much anyway in this world. How much can we learn? It's only a drop in the bucket what we should. Doesn't matter. The idea is it has to be constant. And if it's not constant, then what's gonna happen is a person's resolve gets less. A person's resolve to keep Torah is less. Becomes weaker. Then we start justifying things that we should never justify. Right? That's wrong. And therefore, we have to be careful. We certainly have to be careful because we don't want the evil inclination to wedge its way in. So when our brain, so we mentioned before, how can a person ever sin? A person can only sin when they're free from Torah. When their mind is free from Torah. If we're constantly thinking in Torah. Right? As Rav Scheinberg, Zatzal, may his name be blessed, would always say, when you're walking on the streets, you're waiting for the bus, or whatever, have a question in mind. Think about something you learned, so your mind doesn't stray. See, when a person's mind strays from thinking about Torah, it weakens the soul. It gives the evil inclination the upper hand. You're going to say, but I'm learning Torah, I'm listening to class, I'm doing whatever. But your mind has to be focused. Right? We have to be focused at all times because the evil inclination never rests. If we give in a little bit, the evil inclination can have its way. Can have a field day. We want to make sure that we're going in the right path. We want to make sure that we're going in that right direction. You know, because when we start to veer a little bit, even a little bit, it's only a matter of time before we veer a lot. You're going to say, is the person that weak? Yes. Shocking. We're weak. You know, in the world itself, there's a lot of fantasy. Fantasy sells. Right? It's a big time seller. So you're going to say we live in a consumer society. We're surrounded and bombarded all the time by stupidity. Things we don't need. All kinds of advertisements. So you say, don't look at them, right? You know, minimize. Minimize it. You know, because if not, our mind strays. And when the mind strays, our spiritual side gets weaker. You don't see it in, you know, in physical terms. But one thing we do see, you know, when our resolve is weaker, our observance level goes down. Our guard is down. Some people don't want to hear, wow, that's intense. You're right. Torah is intense. Torah is hard work on a daily basis. Sometimes we're more successful, sometimes less successful. You know, but at the end of the day, we got to put in the best effort. Because, you know, in this case, as my Rabbi says, you want fear of heaven. Right? You want purity. Got to be consistent. You know, even a person starting out in this process, even if you do a little bit, do it consistently. And then build on it. Because the last thing you want is someone calling you out, even if they don't know anything. And they say, oh, you do this, but you don't do that. You do this, but you don't do that. They're right. Even if they don't know anything, doesn't matter. So what does the person answer? You're right. I should be doing more. But this is where I'm holding right now. That usually puts them at bay. You're honest. Don't try and do too much at once. Very hard. You take it step by step, but when you do it, each step you do right. Right? The Coffman's law is don't bite off more than you can chew. You know, don't just dive in head first. You gotta take a few steps back. You gotta take it slow. Rome wasn't built in a day. The evil inclination was like, yeah, I'm all excited. I listen to all these videos. Right? I want to do the right thing. I want to do everything. Calm down. Be normal. Right? You got to calm yourself down a little bit because you could fall very hard, very fast. Right? And then when you fall, it's much harder to get up. You know, a person can take on things. You know, always taking on things is good, but you have to know when you're ready. Right? You have to know what's good for you. Right? That's why you need rabbinic guidance. Should I be doing this now? Shouldn't I be doing this now? How much should I be doing? There's a lot that needs to be done, no question. The idea is to do what you're able to do. Don't worry what you don't do. It'll all come in time. You know, a person starts keeping certain aspects of Shabbos. Start making blessings. You're going to make mistakes. Doesn't matter. You know, start with things you can do. But build on the things you can do and do them well. Then once you start doing them well, you take on something else. Doesn't have to be something big. You add on to it. Then maybe you add a little bit more. But make sure that you can do it. You know, make sure you have the time. Make sure it's consistent. You know, I've seen too much in other so-called movements of Judaism. Inconsistency. And inconsistency, my language, travesty of a mockery of a sham. Because you pick and choose. Someone will say everybody picks and chooses. Not true. We keep what we have to keep. Not about I feel like doing it, I don't feel like doing it. Nah, I'm not going to keep this today. Could be a person forgot this, whatever. Doesn't mean I don't have to keep it. Doesn't mean I just chuck it because I don't feel like doing it or it doesn't make sense to me today. You know, it's not for us trying to understand everything. We're never going to understand everything. King Solomon didn't understand everything. Doesn't mean we don't have to try and understand the best of our ability. Right? I've seen people put out there, well, if this made sense to me, okay, now I'm ready. I mean, we could say that with a million things. And there are plenty of things we don't understand. Right? Probably 80% or more of what the Torah says we don't understand. Doesn't make sense logically. Right? We do make sense of it. You know, many things. But at the end of the day, it's a command. We have to realize it's a command. And when God says, I want you to keep it, right, and this is what you're commanded to do, that's it. It's not I feel like doing it, I don't feel like doing it. But we have to be true to ourselves. There's nothing worse. There's nothing worse, you know, than people eating themselves up for what they don't do. Inconsistency can certainly drive a person mad. And it's very simple. Because if you believe Torah is true, and I have an obligation to keep it, so I have to do it. Right? If I have an obligation to sit in the sukkah, I got to sit in the sukkah. If I have to eat all that matzah, you eat the matzah. You know, you're in a good mood, you're not in a good mood, it feels good, doesn't feel good. Doesn't matter. We don't pick and choose. Torah is not about picking and choosing. If it's true, I have to keep it. All of it. Doesn't say anywhere I'm allowed to pick and choose. God doesn't tell Moshe, you know, this is a good idea. But I'm just kidding. Wink, wink. You know, not obligatory. Do what you want. Yeah, if we be like the conservative movement, we believe the Torah is man-made, okay? Then I can do what I want. It's not binding. You know, that I understand. But if God gave it, I mean, you know, it boggles the mind. If you believe God gave it and He passed it down, who are you to take out and put in? I got to do what the Torah says, what the rabbis tell me. Not a 5-year option to renew. What I'm telling you is crucial. It can stop a person from having a breakdown. You know, I've heard stories of a number of people, you know, got broken by the fact that, you know, they have trouble with this major thing. Right? They have trouble with consistency. And it just drives them batty because they believe in the right thing to do. They just veer off. My language, get lazy. Get complacent. It's not a hard thing to do. Especially the fact that we go through so many different things, so many difficult things. You know, but again, when a person looks at the Torah in observance, is it true or it's not true? Come back to the same thing over and over again. If it's not true, do whatever you want. Make it a travesty of a mockery of a sham. Pick and choose. See if I care. But if it's true, and I have an obligation to keep it, I can't pick and choose. And even if you did, let's say you found proof against me, saying that the Torah shows beyond the shadow of a doubt I'm allowed to pick and choose. So most people who've heard some of my videos will know where this is going, right? Does it work? Does picking and choosing actually work or not? If it doesn't work, then shut up. You're not allowed to speak. Because in your case, it doesn't work. Right? In my case, it works, but you got to be consistent. We have ups and downs. Right? Everybody has ups and downs. But I can't take my up and down and say, okay, I'm just going to do what I want. The Torah is not about doing what I want. You want to do what you want, fine, but realize there's a price you're going to pay. There is a severe price you'll probably pay. Is it worth it? You'll find out later. But I don't think there's anything greater than not only knowing what the right thing to do and doing it is, but doing it day in and day out, because at the end of the day, we should feel better about ourselves when you make blessings, when you keep Shabbos, when you keep the holidays, when you do what's right. It uplifts the soul. We may not see it, right? But it's there. Gives us an extra oomph in our step, even if life is hard. Because there is nothing else out there, right? That's the reality. Secular world thinks they have everything. Problem is, most people are miserable. So you give them everything, let them do whatever they want. So I would say, okay, do whatever you want. Should bring happiness. Doesn't bring happiness. Right? The Torah guarantees happiness if you follow it. But yeah, you really have to follow it. You really have to believe in it. You really have to overcome a lot as well. Because at the end of the day, when life is hard and it's got us down, I still am not allowed to speak Lashon Hara against somebody. I still have to keep kosher. I still have to make blessings. It's not an excuse because life is hard, I just chuck everything. You got to know how to enjoy. You got to know how to compartmentalize these things. God puts me in a certain situation. Okay, it may be hard, but it's there for my benefit. It's there to help me grow. It's an opportunity. Some of us are given more opportunities than others. God can put the squeeze on us in so many different ways. But at the end of the day, we're thrown left, we're thrown right, we're thrown this way, we're thrown that way. Wake up in the morning, wash your hands, just say Modani. Right? You make a blessing coming out of the bathroom if you're Jewish. Get dressed a certain way. Go to synagogue. There's a lot to do. Got more sleep, got less sleep. Doesn't matter. It's all irrelevant. I got to do because I got to do. Because God said I have to do it. But you have to understand what's behind it. Got to love what you do. Got to overcome difficulties. Not easy. But that's the only way you get anywhere. Is by being consistent. So in my language, and this is a lesson for the Kohanim, as my Rabbi here points out, but the lesson for everybody. And that is, you want the best of the spiritual world, you want the best of what Judaism has to offer, do it! Keep it to the best of your ability. Do what you can do. Right? Don't go beyond. Because if you're not ready for it, you're going to get cut down. It's going to be too hard. And then it's much harder to pick up the pieces. Because once you failed, and we all fail, and once you get knocked down, it's much harder to get up. Because people make the mistake. People make the mistake and think, I'm going to become an Orthodox Jew. I'm going to convert. I'm going to change my life. Everything's going to go easy. Not true. doing God's will and everything going easy have nothing to do with each other. Kind of funny hearing that from an Orthodox rabbi. Why? Because most people have this mistaken idea that because I'm changing my life, everything's going to go good. Doesn't mean that. Will you have meaning in life? Yes. Will it be unbelievable for you and your family? Yes. Will it be will it be mind changing? Totally alter the way you think? Yes. Easy? Not gonna be easy. You have to put in time, put in effort. You gotta learn and keep learning and keep learning. We're not having an easy life. We're only here for a short amount of time. People say, wow, looks like you're suffering so much. Look what you do. Look how hard life is. I don't know. What's so hard about it? Once you're used to it, it's pretty easy. Right? But you can't get lulled to sleep either. You can't do things by rote. It has to be fresh. Torah always has to be fresh. Gotta love what we do. I was just texting someone earlier. I got this gift. God gave me this gift. I love what I do. Don't think I have an easy life. Not by any stretch. I'm not complaining. Right? I'm thankful I have what I have. Been where I've been. Plenty room to grow. But at the end of the day, you gotta be excited about what you do. I don't think there's anything more exciting than Torah. I don't think there's anything more exciting. The person's learning and he came up with a question, that was asked 300 years ago, 500 years ago. Doesn't have to be original. Or, when you saw the pieces of the puzzle click, and you realize what an amazing thing it is. When you see, you get that aha moment. Where you see it's all true and now I'm at that point. I want it. I want more. But see, you have to delve into it. As much as we can. To be inspired, because we live in difficult times. Very, very difficult times. Living inspired is hard. But see, within Torah, it's got such depth. It's got such meaning. Things that we eat and how we cook and all this. It's all got meaning. When a person doesn't rip toilet paper on Shabbos, you're going to say, wow, what a great thing in God's eyes. Right? I mentioned earlier. Question and answer says, what does it mean, reach nichoyach? Right? That God, likes the scent of the sacrifice. What, God's got a big nose? Right? Sniff, sniff. No. What do commentaries say there? It was a pleasant smell because the Jewish people did exactly what God said. That's the good smell. Didn't say it was easy. But they did what God wanted. They did it exactly as He said to do it. The people say, really? You think God cares about you tearing toilet paper? Yes. Gives Him pleasure when you listen to His laws. And the opposite when you don't. So, over here, when we speak about fear of heaven, of always wanting to do the right thing, not making mistakes, being careful, being consistent. When a person makes fences up in order to guard himself against it, what it does is it gives them purity of soul. Why? Because a person on a regular basis is worried, what's the next step? What could I possibly do? right? I want to become better. I don't want to make mistakes. I want to make a fence around what I blah, 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 blah. Because the more a person does, I mean, within reason, right, the more protection that they have, then the more it's going to give them meaning. Then the more they're going to strive to be better. You know, when a person strives to be better, even if he's just practicing not to curse, like everybody curses, that's already a big thing. Don't think it's so small. Right, so we have to take little steps. But when a person does the little steps in a good way, and he's consistent, you take more little steps. But you want to make sure you can do it. Because when you take on something you can't do or it's too hard, stop. You're not ready. You know, you're not ready for the next step. So we want to become the best that we can become. The way to start is just to start doing. Even doing little things, but you're doing them on a consistent basis, that's going to lead to purity. That's going to lead to fear of heaven, right? That's going to make a person who they need to become once we start doing what we need to do. So I'm going to stop there. I have a Facebook page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism. Give classes to anyone interested in conversion or to Noahites. Anyone wants to be a Noahide. I have a class, Duties of the Heart, every Tuesday night, 9 o'clock. It's a great book. We're going to start actually the gate of Bitachon, belief in God, starting up this week. I also have a website, subscription website that has all my classes on the Book of Exodus, Book of Leviticus, all Rabbi Sternbuch's Parsha sheets over the last 5 years. It's got videos from me on YouTube. Got book Derech Hashem, the Way of God, the entire book. The Way of the Righteous, still in the middle. Path of the Just, still in the middle. It's a lot there on that website. And anyone who wants to contact me can contact me, Rabbi Chaim Coffman at gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN at gmail.com. And you can also take a look at my blog at orthodoxconversion.com. So wishing everyone a great week. And everyone have a great Shabbos.